Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Coffee and Crypto. We have a special guest, Miles, with us, who's head of research at our Games Guild. It's been really great having you on. A lot of people
thank you for having me back. I
absolutely
actually
love
love
it.
being here. It's
Yeah.
great to actually be able to talk about my work a little bit with people who are in the same space.
And the community appreciates it, I'm sure. So this one I'm really excited about because we wanted to talk about Stepn and this whole move to earn thing that's going on right now. And you've been kind of down the rabbit hole quite a bit with it. And personally, I'm just really excited about it because when Pokemon Go came out, that changed my life. That was probably the most active I've ever got. I was debatably one of the first, if not the first, level 40.
I think you were the first.
Canada.
Yeah.
Well, there was some controversy on Reddit. I posted. And
of course, there always
there's
is.
another person in Montreal and all this.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me was the community getting outside, just becoming active. That having some incentive to get me to go outside seemed to be the only thing I needed.
Yeah.
And I can see the enticing aspect of that. But as a game guild, I kind of went, that looks like a crypto project. Maybe we'll leave it on the side. And I didn't really understand the gamification that was going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I finally, once I started to understand that, I was like, oh, this is just another play to earn.
So
game.
these guys at Stepn
explain.
have created what they self-describe. They actually have a whole Medium article about how they've created a blue ocean market. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of a little bit familiar to us.
Mm-hmm.
So then I looked a little bit more about that. I'm like, well, yeah, they were the first in December, I think it was. They were like the first project to come up with the idea to authenticate the way people move and then reward them with cryptocurrency just to get them to move to earn, exactly like you said.
Okay.
Now, I've looked a lot at the different systems that this game is made up with, and on the surface level, it's pretty simple. You buy a pair of NFT sneakers of a particular type, walking, jogging, running, or trainers, which is really all speeds. And then you just go.
What's the difference between the four of them?
So I guess with a walker, you walk between 1 to 6 kilometers per hour. I think it's miles per hour.
There's a limit.
There's a limit in speed, and so if you go below or above the limit in speed on a particular NFT sneaker, then you're not going to earn as much, and eventually you're going to get flagged for not doing it properly. Is basically what's going to happen. So yeah, if you get walker is between 1 to 6 kilometers, you've got trainers, which are between 1 to 20 kilometers. You can really go any speed with them. Then you've got joggers between 6 to 14 kilometers, and you've got runners, which I believe are 14 to 20 kilometers per hour.
Okay.
And so you want to buy the one that corresponds to the activity that you like to do best. For me, I'm a walker, so I would want to get a good pair of walkers because I'm sure I can make the most use out of them, right?
That's neat. And does it impact... Do you know if it impacts the earning potentials?
To a degree. I think if you want to earn the most walking, jogging, or running, you should get a walker, jogger, or runner. But I think it's possible for you to also earn a good amount, but not necessarily the most, by getting a trainer and doing all three of those.
Are there rarities of them?
And the reason why I say that is because there actually is like an Einstein randomization mechanic to how much you earn. And there's a set pool of one of the two currencies that you can, so that there's a governance token. This is a standard 2-token system.
Okay.
Governance token and an earning token that you use to operate the game. The earning token is the one that we're talking about here, and every set period of time, I believe it's 3 years, it halves in the amount that pool has for people to earn.
Interesting.
And then the other thing is that I believe there's a limit for each person to earn each day.
Okay. Like a maximum cap.
Yeah, like a maximum cap
for 15 hours.
And there's also like a stamina thing, which limits the amount that you can earn based on how far basically you're the distance that you can go in a day before you don't have any more stamina and thus can't earn anymore. And it works very similar to Axie Infinity in that the more pairs of sneakers that you own, the higher your stamina gets, and to a point where it's at 20. So basically you've got your really, really good pair of sneakers that you're actually using at the front, and then you've got another set of sneakers, whether you bred them because there's a breeding system, or whether
That's interesting.
Yeah, it breeds also similar to Axie Infinity. Each sneaker can breed 7 times. And basically you use 2 pairs of sneakers to mint a new pair of sneakers with characteristics of the old ones. Really cool. I like that too.
That's interesting.
Now there's some history with that, but these guys have learned their lesson about the breeding, and it's now implemented really, really well. The history is that basically when they implemented the new chain, the BNB chain, people had a bunch of Solana sneakers, and they were allowing people to have their stamina be calculated on the BNB chain based on what their holdings were on both chains.
Oh, I see.
And so people were taking advantage, and were also minting a lot because they were able to mint across chain.
Okay.
So now that's been changed.
That wasn't a good thing. That caused some issues.
It wasn't a good thing because people were minting heavily as a form of earning as opposed to actually playing the game, and thus the market ended up getting relatively flooded.
I see. Okay.
Now they do have a mechanic to deflate the flooding of those shoes, and it is working, but it wasn't working as fast as the people were minting across the chain, and it was never. So what they decided to do is to create the realm system, which is another thing that, like, again, we're just talking about moving to earn here, but the realm system is important because now the Solana chain becomes its own ecosystem, and the BNB chain's ecosystem becomes its own realm and has its own. You know what I mean? So they're separated. So and that's very important because then you people who have a bunch of really, really rare shoes from the one ecosystem cannot just now jump into the other one right away and flood it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, what was interesting about Stepn, and maybe you can talk about this a little bit, but I found it just kind of looking in from the outside. You know, I didn't spend too much attention on it at first because I didn't think of it as a game. But when it launched, it was kind of during this, I guess you would say during this bear market, probably one of the most successful launches during the last couple month period. And it got a lot of attention, you know, and even I, seen the charts and the price appreciation, and it was like, wow, this is impressive. And then there was an issue with China, I think, that happened. Do you know a little bit of information about that?
I do. I know a little bit about that, too. So this is another one of the points in the history books of... So Stepn is what we call a blue ocean market. They really were the first to do what they're doing. And as a result, they've gone through a lot of the pitfalls that are necessary to go through with the learning of a new system of doing things. And one of those things was that their system relies heavily on authenticating their users using GPS tracking. And that's not allowed in China. So they had to pull out of their Chinese market, which was like 20 or 30% of their market, who are being tracked illegally by China's standards and earning money that they shouldn't have been allowed to earn.
Well, yes, it caused a crash, but I will admit...
But it was, like I said, it was only 20 or 30% of their market. And if you actually look at the floor price of a pair of sneakers today, it's like pretty significant. It's like 1.59 BNB or something like that.
It was a lot more, though.
You know
like, that's kind of what kept me away from it, too, when I first launched. It was like...
So one of the reasons why some of these sneakers were super expensive before, and one of the reasons why the value went down so much compared to what they were at before, is because of that whole minting craze that happened. People were using minting as a form of earning as opposed to using moving as a form of earning. You know what I mean? So now that they fixed that with the realm system, with a couple of other mechanics that will help, like burning mechanics, basically standard burning mechanics, but implemented properly. They will be able to return each economy into a stable and proper, where moving is the way that you'll earn and not necessarily minting.
Which is the whole idea of the project.
And the other thing is that they have a system now that tracks the price of their operational token. And it's if the operational token goes between $4 and $8, the price of minting goes up. They actually impose a fee with the fee is in the form of the governance token. So you actually will have to pay more governance token to mint your shoes if the value of token goes up.
That's supposed to help.
Yeah, it's supposed to help balance it out so that people are not just making money from minting; they're making money from minting and then playing the game.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Here's a question that was on my mind too. How do you prevent people from just getting in their car and driving around the block?
So I don't know all of the details, but I know about 70% of the details. What I know is that they have a couple of different systems, one of them being the gyroscope system, and one of them being obviously the pair of shoes that you choose will have an operational speed limit. You know what I mean? Between 1 and 20 is the most general. But and then there's a couple of other factors that will basically guarantee, like GPS tracking, that will guarantee that you are in fact a person who is walking and not a dog who has a phone strapped to its collar and not an electric scooter with a phone strapped to it, and et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't pass their system, there's like a reputation bar that goes down, and if it goes down too far, you lose your ability to earn. But if you continue to operate the game in its proper manner, then you can get the bar to go back up and thus regain your ability to earn.
That's clever. I like how they did
that. Yeah, it's really clever because it's basically like a karma system. Like basically, if you cheat the rules too much, you'll lose your ability to earn. But what happens is really interesting. Your earnings don't just stop. Your earnings are earned and then burned.
If you cheated the system.
Yeah, so if you cheat the system and you're going, 20 kilometers an hour with a 6 kilometer an hour pair of shoes on a scooter, like your earnings are not gone, they are burned. And a portion of them goes into something called the Schadenfreude pool.
Oh, that's cool.
So now you can stake to this pool called the Schadenfreude pool. The way that works is that whenever an event happens in the game, for example, a shoe mint, or somebody trying to upgrade something, or somebody trying to put their gems together, and it fails, the currency that's used for that generally is burned, but a small portion of it goes into the Schadenfreude pool, and you can apply to that pool and get a portion of that as earnings.
Okay.
So you can basically bet on people failing, which I think is a really interesting system to add to a game like this, especially when the token is going to, like the amount of token that you can earn is going to have every couple of years.
Yeah.
And eventually these tokens are going to become few and far between when it comes to earning them. You know what I mean?
You also mentioned something that maybe we should talk about, gems.
Yes.
What is that?
So there's a whole system of gems and sockets, and there's a lot of clones of Stepn, and they all have this same system. Basically, the idea is that you have different stats for your shoes. If your shoe is more comfortable, you can walk a lesser distance and earn the same amount. If your shoe has more resilience, you can walk a further distance total in the day before you run out of stamina, and thus potentially maybe earn more.
Okay.
If your shoe is more lucky, then when you have to deal with Einstein mechanics and earning, you might be more beneficial in the Einstein mechanics.
So there's a bunch of
stats that basically affect how you can earn, but not necessarily your maximum earnings, because like I said, there is a maximum amount that you can earn each day, and a maximum amount of stamina that helps determine the maximum amount that you might.
Do these gems increase those stats?
So these gems increase those stats, and they also can be combined to make better versions of themselves, a la Diablo 2. So if you get 3 chipped, resilience gems and put them together, you'll get a flawed resilience gem, which will give you a bigger bonus than one chip might give you. But now you can put a larger bonus into a single slot. Shoes have a limited number of slots.
That's what I was just about to ask. Do the amount of slots that shoes have vary?
So that's it. So basically, you can choose how you want to grow your portfolio of sneakers, whether it be by breeding sneakers and getting a large amount of them and thus more stamina, or whether it be by combining gems and having the right gems in your really, really good pair of shoes and then using your earnings to buy more shoes. I don't know exactly which way is the best.
Okay.
But I have watched a couple of videos, and people tell me that no matter which way you slice it, if you play your cards right, your ROI is somewhere within 60 and 70 days in a stable economy.
Wow.
And we're at the bear of an economy right now. So if if we expect things to go up eventually, then it would be a good bet that you could get a pair of shoes and probably get your money back.
Getting 2 to 3 month ROI timelines.
This is not like financial advice, but it sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what we kind of look like, I think, for some context, back in November and December when we were in the bull market and things were just going crazy. What we would look for as a game guild were some of those play to earn titles that had that 60 to 90 day ROI.
That's right.
And usually it was just because there was so much liquidity coming in that it was easy to have extra liquidity coming out.
That's right.
But there's been a few titles that even though the market has gone down, Farmer's World is a good example for this, even though the market has come down significantly, that ROI timeline actually hasn't changed.
It's not changed at all. The thing that's different is now the amount of value in each token, basically.
That's right. So
basically you want to enter the system at a time when that value is low, because the ROI percentage will be the same.
Bingo. Which is kind of why I'm thinking, probably a good time to
that's the basics of impermanent loss for all you guys. If you enter a system and it stays stable, no matter what the price of that system is, and you operate the system in a way that guarantees you an ROI, let's say 100%, you will make 100% as long as the system stays stable. Now, obviously, crypto systems are pretty volatile, so they do not necessarily stay stable. But
that's right.
But yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, we would have a 5-cent price for a token for the rest of time and just work on that and all earn a fair amount of money, and that's just that's beautiful, but that's not the way the world works.
Well, I like that let's talk about the fitness aspect of it, because I think this is something that gets me pretty excited. It's a way, Web3, inherently technology, computers, we're in our office, we're on our devices a lot. I like how this is kind of showing us a way to merge the two, like get outside, become active, go get your walks in. Like for me, that was why Pokemon Go was so enticing. Yes, I could go for a walk, but for some reason, just the act of just going for the walk wasn't as enticing often enough for me.
So I actually have a little anecdote.
Yeah, sure.
I'm part of another project. We're part of another project. It's called Heroes of Mavia, and we had to do a little event for one of the teams that's competing. And basically, the idea was we were running and walking for charity.
Yeah,
and I saw that as like a very, very primitive. Stepn is basically what we're talking about here. Super, super primitive, obviously, and not authenticated, not on the blockchain, whatever. But the point is that for whatever reason, for 5 days, I suddenly had a good reason, because it is part of my job to do and participate, but also I really like walking. I had a reason to walk as far as I could walk.
You just had that extra.
And the truth is, in a single day for that, and I don't think I even got marked on it. I'm pretty sure that I didn't get my.
Oh, okay.
But I walked 20 miles in a single day just because they told me that I could win this little event. There's nothing for it for me.
Yeah.
It just seemed like fun, and I wanted to talk about it with my friends afterwards.
Right.
And I'm a person who enjoys walking, and unfortunately, because I worked in retail so long, my limits are pretty high when it comes to. I don't want to go for a short walk. I want to go for a walk.
I see.
You know what I mean?
So Stepn is great.
So then I saw this Stepn project, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. All I ever did was walk before, and now I feel like I have, no reason to walk like I did before at other jobs that I may have worked in the past, and I'd like to maintain my physical ability to walk long places, and to I like to be on my feet still because I enjoy walking.
Now here's an interesting thing too.
This is exactly a motivation.
What about Pokemon Go players? There's a Jurassic Park one now. There's a Harry Potter one.
So
can you run it
what
simultaneously with
I will tell you is that I have spoken to a few of my other DGen buddies, and they've told me, like, this looks great and all, but just walking isn't good enough for me. Don't you think there's going to be a game? Or don't you think they should make something to add for them to do afterwards? And I'm like, maybe that's true.
Okay.
But the truth is, if you look at the player base for this game, like, all of those people are genuinely ecstatic to be able to go for their regular walks that they were going to do. A lot of them were going to do anyways, because they actually enjoy the feeling of going for a run or a walk or whatever it is that they're doing.
Or walking your dog every day.
Yeah, because they have to do it anyway, and then now they've got a community and a thing. You know what I mean? A lot of the social aspect of this is a huge,
but I'm curious about
thing for me too. Because
can I have it running and play my Pokemon Go?
I do think so,
because that means
Stepn
would be more attractive to all those other
absolutely.
people.
Basically, you can choose to connect your own whatever you're doing while you're walking to Stepn and now make it more fun. That's true.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, I really think it's a great project, and yes, I agree. If they added some mini games to it as a means of maybe burning currency and earning currency or something like that, or a wager thing,
that'd be kind of great. Cool.
But if they don't and they leave it the way that it is, it's got a lot of really sound financial systems in the terms of burning and in terms of like scarcity over time. When I look at a project, especially a project like this, because it has to be good if I'm going to work this hard for it.
Correct.
Like I think about time as a factor for all of the formulas that they have basically inside of a game for the way that things are going to work, and you just imagine that it's infinity. And you go, okay, well, if there's an infinite amount of time, and people can thus earn an infinity amount, is there a deflationary infinity to go counter against that? You know what I mean? For example, if people are going to be making, if every pair of shoes is going to make 7 more pairs of shoes, well, then is there a way for those shoes to go down as fast as they're going to go up? Because they're going to go up forever. You know what I mean? It's going to explode up this way. Is there something that's going down that way to balance it out? Well, there is. They've got a mechanic where when you put 5 shoes together, you can burn them and you can get a shoe of a higher rarity, potentially up to 2 levels higher.
Oh, nice.
You know what I mean? And then it also has a chance to re-roll their stats better and things like that. So there is a really good burning mechanic like that for basically every currency or NFT that's in the game.
What about the team? Have you done much research on them? Are they doxed? Did they get up? Is there many AMAs?
I haven't.
What's the
I actually haven't done as much research on the team as I would have liked at this point. I know that they're not anonymous.
Are they active in the community?
They are relatively active. When I went into their Telegram, the first thing that happened was somebody on their team came into my Discord DM and basically go, "Hey, is there any questions that you have about our project?"
Oh, that's cool.
I was like, "Well, that's really interesting." And I know that it's them because they're part of the, they got the little thingy that verifies them. And I was like, "Well, that's really interesting." Like, they're just genuinely interested to know if I have any questions about their project. And then I went and sort of started looking in their general chats and things like that. And just their community is really, really strong.
See, that's what I want to ask.
Yeah,
I know you're good at.
They have a super strong community.
Okay.
And a lot of those people are less interested in earning their money back. They're interested in earning money at all from their walks.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And a lot of them have earned their money back, which is another thing that I was really happy to see.
Yeah,
that people are not
cool.
necessarily all fighting. And a lot of negative things like this China thing and the 2 chains and the realms thing, those are negative things that could really, really negatively affect a project. Like, if that happened to Axie Infinity, it would have destroyed their marketplace. You know what I mean? And these guys have been significantly less fuddy about it compared to other projects that have had similar pitfalls.
It means that they're strong in all the other areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are pioneers just as much as Axie Infinity is the pioneer of what they're doing. these guys are definitely the pioneers of what they're doing.
This
and
is
you'll
cool.
find a lot of other projects popping up that are not doing too bad, that are pretty similar to this one, but they're not designed quite as well.
Well, now that it's summertime, I think that's what I'm going to do. Pick up a pair of sneakers, start go for more walks with the kids and the family.
Too.
And just kind of get the feel of the experience. I like the idea that you can start collecting more and then burn them to make higher rarity. So there's this whole incentive to kind of keep in the system.
It's a good way to grow. You can start with 2 stamina and just go for a 1 kilometer walk every day and earn a little bit. And then
I
get
think
another pair
about
of
it from a
sneakers.
game
Now you've
guild.
got 4 stamina, and you can.
From a game guild perspective, too.
Speaking of, that's one thing that I did forget to mention. We should really mention this before the end of this video. There is a renting system. It works very similar to Heroes of Mafia's partnership system. You can actually make a partnership with somebody who owns a pair of sneakers. The only cost to rent a pair of sneakers is the split of earnings that you will get for using them. You're going to walk and do the hard work in those sneakers for somebody. Maybe you get 30 and they get 70.
Oh, that's clever.
You can start earning right away, and you can earn right away from renting enough to get a pair of sneakers eventually and start your way in.
You can start as a free-to-play
So
player.
if you think the market is low and you want to buy but you don't have money, go and make a deal with somebody and get some of their currency, because it won't cost as much currency to get a pair of sneakers right
That's
now.
really cool. I'm glad
That's
that
my
they did
advice.
that. And then I also just think about where this could go with like Pokemon Go or game routes and stuff, where there can be incentive not for moving, but the moving is incorporated into a game. As a game guild, I think about the health of all the scholars and people in the game guild. This could be a great way to promote that.
Well, as the head of research
worms.
and development in the company, I do spend a lot of time in front of my computer, and I used to spend most of that time walking around in a warehouse working in my job before that. So this is actually going to be awesome for me, because if I'm going to be an operator of an asset where I get to walk every day, oh my God, that's going to be so good for me coming back into balance. I'm already trying to do that. So
nice.
I think it would be good for the rest of our team too, especially the gamers.
I do. I just can't see a negative to it, especially because it's promoting people's health. There's cryptocurrency.
Yeah, it's great
involved.
balance for us gamers.
It's play to earn, and of course there could be more gamification that happens.
I suspect there will be. I suspect that the player base will say a lot of the same things that my friends are saying, like, "Hey, are you guys going to make any like video games or mini games?" And I think that they probably will. But even if they don't, their economy is going to succeed because it is well structured.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that.
And that's another reason why I never really bothered to look up the names or the faces of the people who designed it, because their white paper is so well written.
Okay.
That I was just like, everything is explained. I was very confident in the way that it doesn't sound like they're changing things, and people are confirming that the roadmap is going, as planned. So
nice.
Like, bear market be damned. I think this thing is great.
Nice, man. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing your experience and your discovery of it. I've been really interested to hear from you, and of course to share with everyone here. Maybe in a couple of weeks or months we can do a follow-up once we've had a chance to kind of get more experience with it, see some changes and updates.
Maybe I'll have like a sneaker NFT and a tan by then.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and thank you everyone else for joining us today, and until the next episode, cheers.